You need to go out there and check out MRCTV here on YouTube. There's a link in the description box below. Especially Brittany Hughes. She voices the channel on MRCTV known as Reality Check. So far I ain't heard nothing that girl said that I don't disagree with. And here's the latest on this particular epidemic right now.
Millions of Americans are losing their jobs. Businesses are closing their doors and not sure whether they'll ever open them again. Families are scrambling to figure out how they'll pay their bills and feed their families on no income. Meanwhile, congressmen, particularly Democrats, are still collecting fat paychecks from taxpayers while squabbling over emergency aid bills that might help Americans narrowly avoid a catastrophe. Why? Well, here's the nutshell. Because the government sucks at everything. And that is exactly why they shouldn't run anything. So now I just want to get this straight here, because there seems to be an incredible cognitive disconnect. So the government orders businesses to close to protect us from a virus they can't control. Millions of Americans lose their jobs because their workplace was forced to shut their doors, and people get sick anyway. Now those Americans can't pay their bills. And now that same government that caused this carnage in the first place is squabbling over how many pennies to throw the desperate people whose livelihoods have been wrecked because of the government. There's no amount of money that the government can shoot out of a potato cannon to cover all these losses, but the Senate had at least agreed to a bipartisan start. Except then Nancy Pelosi blew back into town on her broomstick, and the next thing you know, Chuck Schumer is poo-pooing the same exact relief bill that his party helped draft, because now he says it provides too much aid to big corporations.
Senator McConnell's bill is not pro-worker at all. It puts corporations ahead of people. We need workers first.
Who do you think employs all the people, moron? The magical job fairy? Corporations give people jobs. When you force them to close, you keep them from making money, and they have to lay off their workers who then can't feed their families. This is Economics 101. They teach this in high school, or at least they used to. What good will it be to toss everyday Americans a couple of $1,000s to scrape and claw their way through this crisis when it's all over and done and the dust is settled and they don't have a job to go back to? Hooray! We survived the flu. Sorry about your newfound poverty. And that's when you know this has nothing to do with helping the American people. Frankly, it's getting harder and harder to believe that this has anything to do with stopping a virus, as bad as that virus might be. This is a giant chess game between politicians where American lives are the expendable pawns getting knocked over left, right, and sideways. Economists are projecting 5 million lost jobs and 1.5 trillion in lost economic output. And Senate Democrats are nuking a bill they helped create because they'd rather play politics in an election year than help families who were doing fine 2 weeks ago and now can't pay their rent. And I wonder why. Was the economy doing just a little too well? Need people to suffer a bit more? Want to string this thing out? Some liberal politicians are even demanding that any aid bill include things like wind and solar tax credits and carbon emission standards for airline companies. Things that have absolutely nothing to do with the crisis at hand. But this is the only way they can shove their pet projects through on the backs of suffering Americans and small business owners. And this is the government that half the country wants to take over our entire healthcare system? Really? These guys? The ones who are playing partisan games with your life? They're still collecting taxpayer-funded paychecks while waiters and factory workers and retail store clerks are losing their jobs. They can't even put party lines aside long enough to help families survive a catastrophe that they created. And you want to put them in charge of more stuff? If there is any solid takeaway from this god-awful crap fest of a situation, it's that the government cannot protect you. It cannot protect you from a virus. It cannot guarantee a seamless healthcare system. It can't even find enough face masks and ventilators in an emergency. It cannot efficiently determine who needs what and when. It cannot ensure that you have enough money to survive. It doesn't know what you need. It's run by politicians who own multiple houses and think $1,200 will cover you for a month. The only thing the government has ever been good for is the one thing that it rarely does, and that is get out of the way. I know we're all worried. I know. But we need to reopen America. We have to. If we don't, the coronavirus is quickly going to become the least of our problems, and the government cannot save you. And that's your Reality Check, America. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and stay sane out there.